So hello everyone, welcome to a new video. Today I thought we'd have a little informal chat about my trip to London. So now it is months later, it is now March. The vlogs have all gone live, so you guys have joined on the adventure. You've seen all the destinations, you've seen all the adventures, and now here we are a quarter, not really a quarter, but a partial way through 2025. And I wanted to do a wrap-up video, kind of talk about my experiences, talk about some things that didn't get filmed, and just kind of put a nice end cap to the trip, plus give you guys an opportunity to ask questions. So I've answered some plenty in the comments, and thank you guys so much for leaving so many comments. We'll get back to that in a second. But just in case you have more questions that I didn't answer during these vlogs, leave them down below, and if there are enough questions, I will do another video next week answering your questions. But if not, then I'll just respond to you directly. But let's go ahead and start the video and talk about this first ever trip to the United Kingdom, or as I should have said, England and London. So before I get into the contents of the video, I wanted to say thank you for all the new subscribers that joined on this adventure. When I filmed these vlogs, I filmed them in my normal style, which is kind of like home videos to save for myself, to be able to go back and watch the trip. And I filmed them with the knowledge that at the very least, my family and my core group of subscribers who typically watch my weekly vlogs would likely watch these as well. Knowing that there was a chance that someone else would find these videos, travel videos, you just never kind of know who will be searching for your content, who will find it. And I had no idea that 30,000 people would watch that first video, nor that the rest of the series would have the views that it did. Nor did I think that nearly 1,000 people would sub to my channel from watching those videos. So that's been a wild ride. If you watch my weekly vlogs, then you already saw me talk about that. But they're my typical style videos. They're not professional travel videos. They are definitely just like home videos. It's my hobby. I film on a Canon G7X. That's, I mean, Mark II. It's not even the Mark III. It's a Mark II. I don't remember when I bought this one. I want to say it was 2020. So it's like a 4-year-old Canon G7X that's a nearly decade-old model of a camera. It's definitely a home vlogging, theme park vlogging camera, and not a professional camera by any means. So I thank you all for joining me on the adventure and enjoying it, even though I am by far no means a professional vlogger. So thank you for joining. Thank you for everyone who's left so many comments. I have learned so much. And I have loved it. Like, I genuinely feel the warm welcome from all my UK viewers, and also I am so happy that my core group, the people that watch my vlogs all the time, also really seem to enjoy the trip. So it's been a wild ride. I already really wanted to go back to the United Kingdom, and I'm saying that on purpose this time. I already really wanted to go back. I want to go back to England. I want to go back to London and more places as well. I already felt that way. When I left the country, I was already like, this was too short. I still have so much I want to do. It felt like it flew by. But now, after the warm welcome I got from all of you, I just want to go back even more so. And I have some lovely friends who started off as Disney vloggers. And so we've never met in person, but I've known them for a really long time, the Magic Geekdom. They were Disney vloggers, kind of in a wave of a bunch of other friends that I met that were also Disney vlogging at the time. And in the recent years, they have switched their channel content to be pretty much solely United Kingdom based. And I can understand why, because they took those first trips there and fell in love, and then they got the warm welcome from all of you guys. And then they shared some of that warm welcome. So some of you might be watching this video because of them, but we have been friendly for years. We've just never met. And I watched their videos. We were actually in England at the same time, but our itineraries were completely different. So if you don't already watch them, if you like my videos, you'll probably like theirs too. I'll link them down below. They were very kind to share my first video, so I will give them a shout out right back. Very kind, lovely humans who also are Americans loving the UK. So I can 100% understand why they've gone back as much as they have, because I want to do the same. So getting to the point of this video, I don't have a whole ton of knowledge. I'm not going to come on here and pretend like I'm a England, London expert after one trip. It was 9 days. I experienced what I experienced, but I do want to offer a few things if you're an American going for the very first time that were lessons I learned. I want to share some spots that I think you should absolutely check out. And I want to tell you kind of my ideas for the future. So if you were from England and you fell in love with my videos because of that, I want to tell you some of my ideas that are milling around for the future. So sometimes I sit down and I write a script for these videos. Today I am just flying off the cuff. This is 100% just coming out of my brain. So hopefully you guys enjoy this format. First things first, things I learned. I didn't even take notes. So I apologize if this is scrambled, but I'm gonna try to just have a conversation, chill. If it was cold outside, I'd have a cup of tea with you guys, but unfortunately, I live in Florida and it's not cold, so I don't feel like having a cup of tea. For the first section of the video, let's talk about things that I learned, things that I did not realize before I reached London and England. So first of all, if you are traveling to England in November, like we did, your window of daylight is going to be short. What I didn't expect was sunrise was about 7:30 a.m. and sunset was about 4 or 4:30. So there was not a ton of time to get things done in daylight hours. It goes by very fast and it will start feeling like dusk by like 3 o'clock and the scramble is on. So there were some days where we just scheduled too much. There were some times we just had to audible and change our plans because it was impossible to fit everything in that we wanted to see. For instance, the Tower of London day. Loved Tower of London. I'll come back to that more in a bit. Loved it. So we spent a lot of time there. I want to say we spent 3 or 4 hours there. And so in our mind, we thought, oh, we can do Tower of London in the morning and then catch a train and go to Hampton Court in the afternoon. Thinking of the United States and thinking of Florida and how the sun works in Florida. And by the time we got to the train station, we got a little lost that day. That part didn't get included in the vlog because we were lost and I was working on directions. By the time we figured out where we got lost, which is actually a really cool place with graffiti in a tunnel, and I forget the name of it. I'm sure one of my London viewers can tell me the name of it, but we wandered through this whole underground area with legal graffiti. It was really cool. But anyway, on our way to the train station, by the time we got there, we realized it was going to be a 45-minute train ride out to Hampton Court. The last ticket was going to be sold at 3:15. We were going to be cutting it real close to get to see anything before it was dark. So obviously that varies greatly on when you're visiting, but make sure to check your hours of daylight for England because they are very far north, and as a Floridian, I did not think of that. I was very glad to be there in November. I was very glad to be there for Christmas, and there was so much to do at night because it was Christmas time. But just keep that in mind when you're making your plans, that daylight hours are going to be shorter, and thus some places might be closing earlier and it just might be tough. So I wanted to see Hampton Court, but that will just be saved for a future trip. This time we audibled and went to Borough Market and had that whole experience, which I wouldn't trade for anything. We loved it. So glad we got to see it, but you just have to be able to be adaptable because you just never know. On a similar vein, realize that you are going to be walking a lot. Especially this applies to London. I am a theme park person. If you've seen any of my other videos that have come out other than London, I live about an hour and a half from Orlando, so it's very easy for me to take day trips to the theme parks. So I am used to walking a lot, especially during Halloween Horror Nights at Universal. I will walk 6 to 10 miles a night, so I am very used to it. But there was one particular day that we walked I think it was 9 miles, and the amount of stairs we did coming in and out of the underground, I think it ended up being like 45 flights of stairs. My feet were barking. So I conceptually knew, okay, we're going to be tourists, we're going to be seeing a lot of the city, we're going to be walking a lot, but I didn't really account for how much the underground, even though we were using it to get everywhere, was going to add. So just be aware. I do this thing on my channel called Fit for the Fog, where I get ready for Halloween Horror Nights at Universal because it's so much walking. I think you're going to be taking a trip to London that you should prepare for walking and definitely get yourself ready for all that extra activity as Americans who drive everywhere. I'm sure if you're traveling in from another country that has walkable spaces, this isn't going to really apply to you. But Americans, we drive everywhere. We hardly walk unless you're making a conscious decision to, or you live in a big city like New York that has walkable spaces. If you're a suburbanite like me, you understand. One thing that we did that I am so glad we did was book the very first time for every tour we did. So Westminster Abbey, Tower of London, we booked the first available time. Now, if you watch my channel normally, you know I am not a morning person. However, because of the time change and because we flew over there and stayed awake until 9 p.m., I was waking up early every day and I was taking advantage of that. I was hoping that was going to be the case. So we were going to bed by 10 p.m. every night, and I was able to be up early, have plenty of time to get ready, getting on the underground, even though it was kind of rush hour time, and getting to places for the first time, which is typically about 9 a.m. But that is huge because those first crowds were the least busy it's going to be all day, right? So Westminster Abbey, it felt like there were a lot of people there waiting when we got there. But by the time we were finishing the tour and you saw how many extra bodies were in there, I was so glad we were the first time slot. And then same for Tower of London. We got the 9 or 9:30, whatever the earliest time was, we took it. We got those first areas with just us and a few other people. And then by the time we made it through the first section, a whole bunch of school groups were showing up and more tourists were coming in. So it was getting busier and busier, and it's harder to navigate through, to read signs and that kind of stuff. So I highly recommend taking the first time slot of any tour that you do, just to have a little more space, because this is London. It's very popular. There's gonna be a lot of people no matter when you go. So that was something I was very glad we did. Now, when we booked the trip, I knew we were gonna do the Harry Potter studio tour because that's just been a dream of mine. Of when I go to London, I wanna go there. In fact, I have been dreaming of this trip for so long that originally what I wanted to do was the Harry Potter studio tour and the Doctor Who experience that used to be in Cardiff. But this trip has been in my mind for so long that that experience closed probably 5 years ago at this point. So didn't get to see that, but I wanted to. I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, so I wanted to see the experience in Cardiff. I would still like to go to Cardiff someday and see all the filming locations. But needless to say, Harry Potter studio tour, that was a must for me. So we booked that pretty far in advance. That one does sell out pretty early. Everything else that was Harry Potter related on this trip was impromptu, either from Gary and Becca taking us to Durham Cathedral. That was not on my plans. That was 100% just Gary and Becca, like, you take us where you want to take us. And that was an absolute highlight of the trip. Loved Durham Cathedral, and just Durham in general. Would love to spend more time there. It was very snowy and wet and messy while we were there, so I'd love to go on a day when it wasn't snowy, just because it was kind of hard to walk around and it was mushy, melty snow, so not the easiest to navigate hilled, cobbled pathways and stuff, but beautiful. And then the other places, Borough Market, Leadenhall Market, those were ones that you guys suggested, that in my messages when I was over there, you were like, you have to go see these places. And I was so glad we did. Both were big highlights, and I'm glad we got to see them. The trip turned more Harry Potter than I intended. I am a Harry Potter book fan. I'm a casual Harry Potter movie fan, but it was still so fun to see those locations. I would have loved to add far more historic locations in, but it's just impossible to put so much into one trip. So when I do go back, I still have a whole list of places I'd like to see. And that kind of brings me to Winchester, which was my surprise highlight of the trip. I loved Winchester. I would want to spend so much more time there. I'm so glad we went. As I said in the vlog, that was a last minute replacement because right before we took the trip, we realized that the Bath market wasn't going to open until the day we left. So we had to audible, and so I did some research into finding other Christmas markets around, or like day trip worthy around London, and we found Winchester, and the cathedral looked pretty. So I was like, let's just go there. Let's check it out. It might not be anything, but let's check it out. And loved it. I thought Birmingham was going to be the highlight, and no shade to Birmingham if I have anyone from Birmingham watching my video, but that was my least favorite of the Christmas markets we went to. Even though it's beautiful, like the main courtyard area, if it had been more like that all throughout it, I would have loved it. Like, oh, that courtyard, gorgeous. But Winchester was the vibe I wanted, with a bunch of local artists and everyone selling soaps and cheeses and ornaments and cookies, and there was endless amounts of local businesses selling their items, and that's kind of what I thought of when I thought of Christmas markets, rather than Birmingham, which felt more corporate. Like, I felt like there was a corporate entity that was putting this on, where every block there was the same sausage place, the same gingerbread place, the same donut place, and then rinse and repeat, copy paste down the blocks. It was still beautiful, but I was hoping for local artists, and that's what I got at Winchester. Plus, I mean, the cathedral, just stunning. I loved Westminster Abbey, but that cathedral just, it was such a more private, quiet, leisurely experience to visit that one versus Westminster, which is obviously a huge tourist location. I was so glad to see it, but you're fighting people to see it, whereas Winchester was just personalized, quiet, serene, beautiful. So I'm super glad that we got out of London, that we saw some of these cities. I'm glad we did little day trips. There's still so many other places I want to see. We barely scratched the surface of England, obviously. And even then, with, I think we spent 5 days in London, I feel like I barely scratched the surface of London. I feel like I got the London Christmas experience. Fortnum&Mason was beautiful, gorgeous, great first impression of being in London. That walk, getting to see Buckingham Palace right away, seeing the Christmas decor right away, and then Fortnum&Mason was such a treat. It was such a great first impression of London. Getting to see the Christmas market at Trafalgar Square and the Christmas market at Leicester Square, and kind of doing these touristy spots. I'd like to dive more into the history of London and more along the lines of Tower of London on a next trip, because I loved the history of it. And outside of London, I know there's a ton of historic places to visit as well. I loved Newcastle, obviously. So there's tons more I want to see. I welcome tips, tricks, hints of places I should visit in the future. So leave me a comment and let me know where I should visit. But I'm already dreaming of the future. This isn't necessarily a lesson, but it's something that I think Americans won't expect. But I had a little bit of pre-warning from Gary and Becca, because I have lovely friends that live there in Newcastle. England is living in the future compared to the United States when it comes to paying for items. I stepped into the future and I can't go back, or I don't want to go back. I have to because I live here in America, but everything there is tap to pay. I did not have to pull out a credit card my entire time in England. Every single thing, tap to pay. Apple Pay, however you pay with your phone, tap to pay everything. You don't have to get receipts. It's just literally tap, you're done. It's amazing. Everything in America takes so much longer. And my UK friends have said this before, like, why does it take so long to purchase things in America? But being in England, they are right. Everything takes so much longer here. In fact, even the trains, everything on my phone, tap to pay. Now on the longer trains, not the tube, I had a ticket, but I still tap to pay to buy the ticket. But on everything else, the tube every single day, tap to pay. Amazing. Loved it. They're living in the future. America needs to get with it. So those were just some broad lessons that I learned from being over in the UK. I'm sure there's a ton more I could think of. If you have specific questions, feel free to ask. I will answer. But I loved it. I felt very comfortable everywhere we went. I know in my comments there is some very strong opinions of Londoners versus non-Londoners, north, south. I see it. I saw it all. Did not understand, did not know that before going, that there were such strong opinions from people who live in England of London and not liking London, or vice versa. I am an American just visiting. I'm not getting involved. But I loved London. I loved the cities I visited out of London. I felt comfortable the entire time I'm there. I felt, as an American who's visited a lot of America's big cities, I felt very comfortable. You know, I think if you're visiting a big city, you have to have street smarts about you in any city, right? If you're gonna go to New York City, you're gonna get the same kind of warnings as visiting London, and you just have to be aware of your surroundings and prepared in any big city. So I felt completely fine, secure, safe. So for me, it's just about being prepared, and I've lived in big cities before and I am used to that kind of hubbub and I'm fine with it. But if you're not, then I would just, you know, read up about it, be smart. I did purchase this for my phone and I've been using it ever since, because the one thing about London that I read is that having your phone stolen is very common right now. And that's not really a thing that happens anywhere that I go in the US. I haven't really heard. I'm sure it does happen, but pickpocketing and phone snatching is apparently a pretty big deal in London right now, supposedly. So I was prepared. I had this so I could have this on my wrist, and I always have a pop socket on my phone anyway. So anytime I was taking pictures, this was around my wrist and I always have the pop socket. So I felt doubly secure. And then also it was just nice to, like, you know, have this. If it was in my pocket, it was zipped up. And I also had, the bag that I got was an anti-theft bag, which probably wasn't necessary, but I just felt nice having the extra click zipper, just for being in a place that's known for having pickpocketing and being on the underground shoved with people, that everything was locked up and I felt more secure. So that's really all I'm going to go into as far as that goes, but just do your research. And for me personally, I felt fine. So I've kind of already discussed all my favorite places that we visited within that previous section. So let's move on to talking about the future. So what lies ahead for me with travel in England and the United Kingdom, and what I want to do next. So if you guys don't know, I have a lovely friend named Sammy who lives in Scotland. And in fact, today as I'm filming this video, it is March 5th and it is Sammy's birthday. So if you watch this video, happy birthday, Sammy. I did not get to see her on this trip, and a lot of you messaged to see, are you gonna see Sammy on this trip? And frankly, no, because there's no time. There's just no time, and I already knew we were gonna do the weekend with Gary and Becca, and I wanted to stay with them. And it was already not enough time to see everything I wanted to see in England. There's still so much of England I wanted to see. There was no way to try to tack Scotland on there as well when we're there for 9 days. What I'm dreaming is a dream of 2026 and going to see some more spots in England that are on my list that are growing from comments that you guys have left, and then just places that were already on my mind, and spending a good chunk of time in Scotland, seeing where Sammy lives, but also Instagram has started sending me reels for Scotland because it knows, somehow it knows. And I am already dreaming of so many places I want to visit, because I think just based on how much I loved Winchester, Durham, and Tower of London, just imagine me in Edinburgh. Like, I feel like I'm just gonna love Scotland as well. So that's my current dream. 2025. This trip to London was expensive. I mean, you guys know London is pricey. So this trip this past fall was a big one, right? It was a big expense. It's not the kind of trip we always take. It was worth it for a big milestone birthday to just kind of go crazy. This next trip that I'm dreaming of for 2026 would hopefully be more of a budget trip, a little less extravagant, maybe a little longer. We'll see what I can work out. But if you guys have suggestions of places that I absolutely need to see in England or Scotland, leave me a comment, let me know, because I've got a year to plan this one and I really want to come back. I want to travel and see more. And I wouldn't go in November this time because if I'm planning to go to Scotland, I don't want to literally freeze. It was pretty darn cold in Newcastle in North England in November, so I wouldn't go during November. I'd go during a little bit of a warmer time. So yeah, leave me suggestions, and I'm gonna spend the next year of time dreaming about it. I would want to do a day or two in London just to do some more. Like, I only saw a fraction of the British Museum. I'd like to see more of that. There's definitely more London sites I'd like to go visit, but the rest of it I'd like to be more in other towns outside of London. So I know there's the Cotswolds, there's a bunch of different beautiful areas that I'd like to go see, and Scotland. So I haven't intentionally started planning anything yet, but Instagram has been sending me reels. I've been saving them. You guys have been leaving me comments. I've been saving them. The ideas are brewing and I can't wait to come back. And this kind of goes into the first category, but it's also a nice way to wrap up this video. We loved the people in England. Everyone was so nice. When I started that first video and I talked about the flight attendant who apologized to me 20 times over not being able to give me tea when I was like, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Like, I fully understand, it's fine. That was the experience pretty much the entire time in England, to the point where even at the train station in Winchester, we had about a 45-minute delay on the train there. I didn't vlog any of this because it was kind of hectic getting the train station and the trains were delayed. There was things happening. So we ended up waiting about 45 minutes, maybe an hour for our train. And then it was like, there's so many people waiting, it was chaos. But there was a little convenience store in there, and the clerk at the convenience store, even there, was so incredibly friendly. And we were talking about it, like, can you imagine stopping at a random convenience store in America and finding someone that happy and friendly in the train station convenience store? The answer is no. Like, very rarely. Every once in a while, yes, but very rarely. And it just was like that everywhere. Everywhere we went, everyone was so nice. On the train, people were just having random conversations with each other, chatting with each other. On the way to Newcastle, there were these young guys who were in their 20s for sure. I think there may have been a soccer match happening in Scotland, so they were taking the train up for that. And they ended up just chit-chatting with a lady who was on the train who was definitely quite a bit older than them, and she was heading up to meet her girlfriends for the weekend. And they were bantering back and forth, and it was so fun just to sit and listen to. Like, people were just friendly and happy and glad to help you out, and it was a very nice culture change from the current swirlings of things that are happening in America. Like, obviously you can hit pockets of it anywhere, but it just felt overwhelmingly that it was a warm, inviting, wonderful country that I want to go back and see so much more. And then I come home and I post my videos, and look what happens. I get a warm, wonderful, beautiful welcome from the majority of commenters. Every once in a while there was someone not as warm, but the majority of you were lovely, kind, and to have one of my videos go a little mini viral, I was very glad that the audience was this audience. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for being one of those kind, lovely people. Definitely one of the reasons I want to go back. So that's gonna wrap up this video. Like I said, I am usually more structured, but I just kind of wanted to have an off-the-cuff chat with you guys, share my memories, share a few things that I took away from the trip, and leave it open-ended for questions. So if there was something specific you wanted to know about my trip, like I said, leave me a comment down below. If there's enough, I will record a video next week and we will go into further discussion. If you're wondering what's next for me in general, I do have more travel coming up this year that I kind of keep as a secret. I don't like to spill all my secrets too early. So if you did find my channel for the UK vlogs, I hope you'll stick around until my next trip, possibly in 2026. Hope you'll watch some of my other videos while you're here because, you know, I do create some fun stuff and it's kind of fun to hang out with me here in Florida. And if you're one of my loyal viewers, thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around this far. And there's more adventures to come this year. Keeping secrets, of course, because can't reveal it all too soon. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign off, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk soon. Bye.